thanks so much for presenting all that in such a short while and giving us that really awesome historical perspective. I was very agog when I was hearing about um, how the nomenclature itself was framed and what happened when the migration took place, and then the manner in which the issue began in Assam. So thank you so much for doing that. Can I now open this up for a brief while so that we can have a couple of questions uh, to Nazima? Anyone here who would like to ask? But Nazima, let me begin, and a very quick question that um, what explains the the manner in which the whole citizenship thing has been removed from the political space in the last year or so, and is that strategic? Is this going to come back? That's mine. And before you answer mine, I will ask Muqtadar to include his question so you can answer both. Muqtadar, please.
So, thank you for that historical perspective on CAA, but I want to ask you a couple of things about the practical side of the law itself. So according to the Indian government's own estimates, this law benefits potentially only about 30,000 people, they say. That it will be affecting only 30,000 people. So for a country of 1.4 billion people, close to a billion Hindus, you're going to be adding or fast tracking 30,000 people to become citizens. Secondly, a lot of criticism of this law does not seem to include the fact that it has a sunset clause in it, which says that this is applicable only to the migrants who came before 2014, December, and not after that at all. So going forward, even the United Nations objections about the fact that it is not a non-discriminatory refugee asylum program is not valid because India is not a signatory to that. India does not have a refugee asylum. So if you beat up Hindus in Pakistan now, which is happening at a very intense pace, kidnapping of women, forcible conversion, if those women manage to cross the border into India today, let's say 5,000 Hindu women run across the border, escaping mullahs trying to capture them and forcibly marry them, they are not going to benefit from CAA. So India is not a Hindu homeland for these oppressed Hindu women going forward. So it looks as if it is some sort of a hangover of the two-nation theory which led to the divisions of 1947. And so those who are so critical of the CAA and the fact that it is a discursive instrument for reconstructing India as a Hindu homeland. Muslims did it in 1947. They constructed India as a Hindu homeland, like saying that with their two-nation theory and the demand for Pakistan. So my question to you is, given the practical side of it, the practical and policy implications for Hindu refugees coming from anywhere in the world post-December 2014, none of this holds. None of this, that India is a Hindu homeland, etc., holds. The chances of them getting a citizenship or asylum is as good as a Muslim coming from some other Muslim countries. So has CAA become a way to essentially target RSS and the Hindutva politics? Or is there some substance to that?
Thank you very much. Can I respond? First of all, Amir bhai, could you please ask your question again because I couldn't understand this.
Yeah. Nazima, can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah.
What has happened? Why has the CAA disappeared from the headlines? Over the last year or so, we don't hear about it at all. Is it a temporary phase? Is it going to come back, or do you think it has been, it served its purpose and is buried now?
Hmm, hmm, hmm. First of all, I think both of these questions are interconnected. And I would just like to respond that my work actually it just tries to historicize the current political debate. And it actually looks at the, you can say, it tries to look at the genealogy of the current the debate on the CAA, which actually quite categorically uses the category of religion as the prime marker of identity or citizenship right in that particular context. But I wouldn't say that it is the real politics. As I have in my work, I have also said that it's a metaphor. Hindu nationalism is a metaphor. Hindu homeland, the whole idea of Hindu homeland or Hindu community is an imagined idea. So there is an imagined community, imagined idea of Hindu community, because Hindu community or even the Muslim community or all communities are highly diversified, and they are always or diversified. So India, whether India is going to be a homeland, Hindu homeland or not, I think at the practical level, we all know that how CA is not going to help any community or any minority community or persecuted community, as they are actually trying to categorize or define other minority communities living in Muslim-dominated nations. But what it does, it actually makes the effect which is actually required for the Hindutva politics in the contemporary period. It creates a kind of illusion or imaginary community, constructs an imaginary community where people who actually associate with the Hindutva politics ideologically, or people who are the common people who actually associate themselves, who are made to feel that they are Hindus and they are suppressed under the Congress rule or under the secular regime. So they become so it's like creating a kind of constituency. Like, for example, if we talk about overseas Hindus living in other parts of India, other parts of nations, so they are not a political constituency per se in terms of electoral politics. But what it does, it provides an ideological justification to the Hindutva politics. Now, in terms of its disappearance from this scene, so basically, I really don't know how what is going to happen or how it is going to create, it is going to come back. But the kind of fear that it created during that period of 2019 election, and it really helped BJP, helped the Hindutva politics to win election and to come back in a majority. Now, with the actualities of this CAA and the way it was implemented, and we found the again the Hindutva, the regime, they found that there were many Hindus as well who actually eventually became a victim of this CAA, NRC, or NPR, the National Population Register, who actually became a victim of that just because they were migrants or they had migrated to that part of Assam. So the Assam politics in itself is very complicated, and that region particularly is they are all tribal communities, so they don't really associate with the constructed notions of Hindu and Muslim community, because this is why my argument that these are the constructed political communities when we talk about Hindu and Muslim. So they are not the way they were in the pre-colonial British period. But here we are talking about the contemporary movement. So this is what I feel, that these are all imaginations, these are all imaginary statements to support Hindutva politics, to get this political recognition as a sole representative of Hindus, which is actually not the case. We know that in reality, this is not how it works. This is not how communities are. Communities are not homogenized, and they don't always live with the grand ideas of Homeland. They have their own everyday relationships. They have their own everyday practices. I think that's the vice plans.
So over to you. Yes, Nazima, thank you so much for this, for the questions also. I will quickly now move over to Mithlesh. Are you ready, Mithlesh? You are already co-host.
Yeah, Amit bhai, I'm ready. With your permission, I would like to keep my camera off because of poor internet connection. Am I permitted?
Excellent. Thank you so much. Absolutely, absolutely. We would have loved to see you, but we will as well.
Okay. A very good evening to all of you. It is indeed a privilege to be a part of this panel. And I would like to thank for this Mukherji sir for introducing me to CDPP and Amit bhai. Now coming to the chapter, and the title of my chapter is Citizenship Amendment Act and its impact on India's foreign relations. So why did I choose this topic? The reason behind it is there has been a lot of discussion on several aspects of the CAA, such as human rights apprehensions, women's rights, migration issues, minority concerns, etc. However, there has been one aspect which is least discussed, and that is what impact or effect this law would have on India's relations with its neighbors and principal interactors near and far. So I would like to mention here that this chapter does not discuss the merits and demerits of the act, but on the impact, real or imagined, of this on India's foreign policy and relations with important countries. The chapter deals with three pertinent questions. One is what actually the Citizenship Amendment Act stands for. What is the legal status of refugees in India? Third one is what have the political implications of the CAA on India's foreign policy. I would like to skip first one because everyone is aware what CAA is. The second one is what is the legal status of refugees in India. So as far as immigrants and refugees are concerned, in India, it is regulated by the Citizenship Act 1955. It is important to note here that India is not a signatory to 1950 one United Nations Convention on Refugee Status and its 1967 protocol. Around 149 countries are co-signers to either or both of the instruments. The key factor of the UN Convention of 1951 is non-refoulement, which provides the legal right to a refugee of non-forced return to a country where they face severe threat to life. This has now become a rule of customary international law. However, in India, all foreign nationals, including refugees, asylum seekers, or stateless persons, are ruled by the provisions contained in the Foreigners Act 1946, the Registration of Foreigners Act 1939, the provisions contained in the Foreigners 1946, the Registration of Foreigners Act 1939, the Passport Act 1920, 1967 and Citizenship Act 1955, as India does not have any domestic law to deal comprehensively with refugee-related issues. The lack of well-defined legal framework makes this situation more complicated. Mostly, it deals with refugees at political and executive levels, and their safety and security has customarily been based on random executive policies, corresponding legislation, and judicial verdicts. When it comes to how India should deal with refugee and illegal immigrants problem, the first obstacle is that India does not have an accurate numerical data on refugees. However, according to the annual report, which was published by Right and Risk Analysis Group in 2021, it is estimated that there are around 4 lakh declared refugees in India, including 222 acknowledged and documented by United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. For example, Taliban refugees, Sri Lankan refugees, around 31,313 refugees are from neighboring countries belonging to minority communities who have been given long-term visas on the basis of their claim of religious persecution and seeking Indian citizenship, and approximately 1 lakh 23,000 unregistered Chin and Rohingyas are there. The report further states that in 2021, roughly 20,000 refugees comprising 18,000 from Myanmar, mostly Chins, took refuge in India, and unaccounted number of Afghan refugees also arrived, though 4,557 Afghan were in India on long-term visa as on December 2021. When this Citizenship Amendment Act was passed and coincidentally was merged with NRC Act in the state of Assam, it generated heated debates and protests first in the state of Assam and which later spread to the whole country. It was argued that the act would not only affect India's own citizens, but also damage its relations with its South Asian neighbors and harm its international image as well. Many scholars, diplomats, officials expressed their concern and that the government's amendment to the Citizenship Act was a self-inflicted goal, which has isolated India and resulted in the country being hyphenated with Pakistan as an intolerant state, and that India's internal issues are increasingly threatening to impact India's foreign policy. Matters such as the Citizenship Amendment Act and India's position in Kashmir are beginning to affect India's relations with its neighbors, major Islamic countries such as Iran, Indonesia, and its strategic allies like the United States. The above concerns expressed by different scholars underline the fact that this bill was not received well nationally and internationally. The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, filed an intervention application in the Indian Supreme Court on the Citizenship Amendment Act in March 2020, on which the Ministry of External Affairs replied by asserting that CAA is an internal matter of India and it is sovereign right of the Indian Parliament to make laws. The MIA exposed person, Ravish Kumar, said, "We strongly believe that no foreign party has any local standing on issue pertaining to India's sovereignty." Alice Wales, United States Assistant Secretary of State, too had shown her concern in her briefing before the State Department over CAA after returning from Raisina Dialogue held in Delhi in January 2020, but that did not affect US President Donald Trump's official visit to India nearly a month later. However, at the end of April 2020, the United States Commission on International Religions suggested in a new report that US government should designate India as country of particular concern and even impose sanction on Indian agencies and officials responsible for severe violations of religious freedom by freezing those individuals' assets or barring their entry into the United States. During the Donald Trump's two-day visit to India on 25th February 2020, Delhi witnessed lethal religious violence. While most people thought that this would have an adverse impact on US-India relations, but the reality is that in international politics, it is hard strategic national interest that guide any nation's foreign policy, not human rights concerns. Nations may show or pretend to have respect for democratic values and human rights, but the fact is that for all countries, national priorities come first, and while principles are important, they are usually not allowed to dictate national interest. On February 27, the US State Department gave out its very mild response to the rights, calling all parties to maintain peace, refrain from violence, and respect the right of freedom of. Similarly, this act was criticized by Pakistan, Iran, Indonesia, Turkey, and Malaysia, to which New Delhi hit back and asserted that Southeast Asian countries should refrain from commenting on India's internal developments. However, most of these acts of condemnation remained in the realm of diplomatic rhetoric or discussions on human rights. The pertinent question is that whether any nation in reality has broken any ties or cancelled any deal with India, or have any sanctions been thrown at India, or has any nation used military power in response to the passing of CAA. The answer is no. If we take a relook at India's foreign relations since 2019, since then, 3 significant years have gone by, of which 2 years the world has been fighting with the new virus causing a global pandemic affecting billions and has killed millions worldwide. India has also faced this pandemic and is recovering from its effects politically, medically, and economically. India is one of the countries to have successfully designed, tested, and have brought out a vaccine for the virus, and then admirably, in limited time span, vaccinated a large part of the population and even sent consignments of the vaccine to a large number of needy countries. Many countries around the world have praised India's actions, and this has added to a goodwill enjoyed by India in a committee of nations. India is an important member of this emerging bloc and is being supported internationally. The UK, Australia, France, and Germany, along with other European countries, have largely supportive of India, especially after its vaccine diplomacy during the COVID pandemic. Japan, the countries of ASEAN, Taiwan, South Korea have in fact increased their interactions and engagement with India after it stood up to Chinese aggression in eastern Ladakh in 2020. The Middle East is largely in the middle of a new power struggle between an Iran-Turkey axis and a US-Israel GCC axis. The Saudis and UAE and Oman are largely supportive of Indian foreign policy initiatives, with Saudi Arabia even undertaking a locate its strategic oil terminals in India. India maintains its friendship with Russia despite the ongoing war in Ukraine. While providing humanitarian relief to Ukraine, it is in touch with Western democracies as a country with whom the Russians would be willing to talk to in an effort to end the war. These are the facts on ground, and there is no talk at present or in the last 2 years of CAA having undermined India's foreign relations. However, I would like to conclude by saying that Indian establishment must take a long, hard look into necessity of the CAA. There is no need to waste hard-won political and diplomatic capital on some ideological pretense. Refugees who come to India could be processed according to a common law on a case-to-case basis. India as a nation will have to look after its own people, irrespective of caste, creed, or religion, and look to strengthen and progress itself to achieve its national goals. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Mithlesh. You know, what is interesting is that right now, India is hosting this G20 foreign ministers meet, and therefore this issue is really important, and it is the subtext of almost every discussion that is going on.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, so it's it's really
SCO meeting,
the
not
SCO
G20.
is Oh, the SEO, yes. But right now we have the G20 that is going to happen in Srinagar, of all things.
Many meetings are taking place of G20 also in the country. Varanasi also have hosted a few meetings here.
That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's going on.
Yes. So thanks. In that context, it's really very important because whenever I speak to our foreign diplomats, the one thing that scares them all the time is that they are summoned and asked questions on the citizenship issue, and it's all of them confess that it is it's a very difficult thing to comment on or answer to. So given that situation, how do you read this entire thing of India with the difficult countries? Does the citizenship issue matter in the international forums right now? That is something that I would like you to speak about, if that fits into the thing. And may I get in the others? I mean, if there's any other question to Mithlesh, because this aspect of citizenship and foreign relations is a serious one, and just as the pressure that came on India after that Nupu Sharma episode, where several countries summoned India's ambassador and really gave them a dressing down, it really impacted domestic policy, and that was it's possibly the only time that you have the Prime Minister sacrificing or letting go of somebody that he had appointed. He has never done that even in a rape allegation like what is going on against this wrestler. But there he had to, and it was simply the case that a lot of foreign nationals, foreign countries were breathing down. Muqtada, yes.
Yeah, thank you for bringing it up. Uh, I want to make a tangential comment about SEO because it's happening and I've been covering it so closely. I invite those of you who are not familiar to watch my YouTube channel called Conversations. It's increasingly focused on India. So if you go to the SEO website in India, it's all about Buddhism and Mithu's hometown, Kashi. So there's a lot of promotion of Hindu culture, etc. But there are more than close to 100 million Muslims in the Central Asian countries, nearly 50 million in China and Russia. There isn't a single country in the SCO which does not have a huge, significant Muslim population, but there's absolutely no comment on these issues. And there is no comment on the issues of Hindu nationalism or the state of Muslim minorities, etc., from any of these countries from the SCO convention. And it's as if Islam doesn't exist in SCO world. So that is an interesting observation to make. And I was also going to bring up the Nupur Sharma case. I think the message that Nupur Sharma's episode sent was, look, as far as the Arabs are concerned and the Middle East is concerned, just don't say anything negative about Muhammad, Allah, Quran, and go ahead, kill and rape and plunder and murder all the Indian Muslims. We really don't care. So the message that I think Nupur Sharma case said is we don't care about Indian Muslims. We do care about Islamic symbolism because our population gets a little agitated. Neither the CAA nor any other episode that has happened since or before, whether it's cow vigilante, etc., has impacted the Gulf countries' investments in India, the growing closer relations, especially with UAE and Saudi Arabia, etc. So none of these Muslim countries have raised any of these issues, and I will tell you why. As long as India's overall human rights record and democracy ranking is above those of Muslim countries, there isn't a single Muslim country in the world which is ranked higher than India on the democracy index. Malaysia is close, and I don't know what the status of Bosnia is, but there are no Muslim countries who are ranked higher than India when it comes to democracy. The other thing is that people who have been talking about India's human rights record, especially in the context of USCIRF, the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom, which is the most aggressive American body that criticizes India, it does not acknowledge the decline in, say, cow vigilantism in the last 5 years, since 2019, and so on and so forth. So the cumulative deaths are just 44 over a period of 6-7 years. So what is happening is that while there is a discourse going on about India and its treatment of Muslim minorities, it is a part of the contestation with BJP, RSS combined. So there is a resistance to the hegemony, the political hegemony of BJP and RSS, and Muslims are becoming the battleground for that, discursively speaking. And I think that this whole talk about Mithlesh is very correct to point out that no serious action has been taken by any country diplomatically with India or against India on the issue of CAA, partly because of this whole business that the Global South says that these are internal matters. And if today Saudi Arabia were to ask about what's happening to Indian Muslims, we have millions of Hindus working in Saudi Arabia who do not even have access to a temple, who cannot pray, who cannot celebrate their festivals. All those kind of issues are going to come up immediately. So I have a feeling that India enjoys an autonomy from the world on how it deals with Muslims. it has less freedom on its discourse towards Islam. And the more I engage with India, I notice both things. In fact, there is more hostility towards Islam than there is towards Muslims in the public, the social media sphere. And I think we should take cognition of that. There is this imaginary Islam in Hindu minds. This is not a religion. This is a cult. These are invaders. And there's this love jihad. It seems Muslims hardly have jobs. They are so poor. They're marginalized. Apparently, all they are doing is, capturing Hindu women. And why do these Hindu women fall for these losers? I don't understand, when they have millions of great Hindus to go after. And especially things like look at the Kerala files, 32,000. What kind of a country this is which allows 32,000 of their women to become terrorists or go to marry ISIS, etc. So there are all these false narratives they are constructing. And I think it is important for those who are critiquing it to be very precise rather than to advance this. Even criticism of the Hindutva discourse continues to cement the polarization of the country. And in the long run, as they say, tarbuz churi pe gire ya churi tarbuz par, katta to tarbuz hi hai.
Yes, Murtaza, that is true. And that's a very interesting point you say about the about how India looks at Islam itself, and there is this strange antagonism that you see across the country, especially where there are sizable number of Muslims. Where there aren't, you don't see that much of hostility. Orissa is a great case in point, where you find that there are hardly any Muslims. So you don't see us, and that's why you'll find that the BJP will find it always difficult to make any headway in either Orissa or Tamil Nadu or Chhattisgarh, where there are like 2-3% Muslims, and you haven't seen one ever in your life. But where you have Assam or UP and whatever it is, it's a serious issue. So Mithlesh, I mean, broadly on these points, would you like to react?
Yeah, first your questions are that does citizenship has anything to do, or does it have any impact, or foreign policy matters? So
Yeah.
my observation is that citizenship, when it comes to, I think most of the Western countries, including European countries, they all are facing this immigrant issues and are dealing with it. And initially, they have allowed lots of migrants, refugees to their country. Now they are getting a bit hesitant in allowing them to their country. And now, even if you from India, I don't know about other countries, if Indians, they try to go to Europe for any kind of visit, whether they are going on tourist visa or they are going for academic trips, they are so reluctant to give visas to us. So, and if they are giving us visas, they are giving only for that particular time. If you are going for 5 days and they ask for the complete itinerary. So people should not go and stay there. Even America, as we have had a discussion in America when we met there with Mukherji sir, he told that Obama was called, what is that phrase, sir?
Deporter in chief.
Deporter in chief.
Obama he deported
was.
more people than any president in the US history.
So who is going to comment on this when every country is having or facing the same kind of challenge? So when it comes to internal matters, I don't think internal matters are going to affect foreign policy matters. Foreign policy and international relations and internal issues or national issues are completely, I think, it's my observation, are two different areas. So one hardly has an effect on international relations.
Yeah, thank you. Well said. You talked about Obama being the chief deporter. Look at what Rishi Sunak is doing in the UK.
The countries who are facing this migrant problem, they are now very reluctant in allowing people coming from even we are going on some official trip. They are hardly, European countries are not allowing Indians to come to Europe.
Very good. Yeah. Zainab, you have raised your hand.
Yes,
Zainab
just a couple
Ehsan.
of observations. I think thank you so much to the presenters for sharing the insights. And I think based on Mithlesh's observation that no other Islamic countries, quote unquote, have taken any action or any credible or steps towards raising an objection, could that partly also be due to the fact that India does not really have a seat at the table when it comes to the OIC countries, in terms of membership, etc. So when it comes to these conversations about the Muslim world, so to speak, India doesn't really have a voice, or even if it does, it doesn't get the right platform. And notwithstanding the fact that internally as well, there's certainly a leadership crisis for Indian Muslims internally. And we also lack any sort of representative institutions. For instance, in the USA, we have the CAIR, right? The Council for Islamic American Relations. But when it comes to Indian Muslim issues, there's no unified platform which can actually not just raise issues related to Indian Muslims per se, but to any other vulnerable groups, or maybe come out and give a statement when there's like Mukherji Saab correctly mentioned that there's more like there's more antipathy and indifference when it comes to Indian Muslims, and even when it comes to the issues of Indian Muslims. There's not so much concern because there are not so many voices that are actually representing or speaking out. And partly also, Amir Saab, I think you asked the question that why are we not seeing CAS so much in the headlines? And I mean, obviously the Shaheen Bagh protests and all these protests and public involvement had a lot to do with dampening the momentum of the CARC implementation. And but I mean, there's so much of information asymmetry that it's just very hard to sort of connect the dots. But also, what steps, practical steps from the policy making perspective could be taken in in the internal and external levels to address some of those issues?
Wonderful. Yeah, that's an important point. Should India have a seat on the OIC, given that it's the second or the third largest Muslim population? If it did, then it would have had to answer difficult questions. Do we have a platform in India that asks these or raises these issues? Is there a Muslim platform? Is there a secular platform? Very important issues. We will take these up. I am afraid that we have taken 10 minutes more than we promised you we would. Thanks so much, everybody.
Comment about the OIC thing, Amir?
Yeah.
With regards to India, you remember during the time of Indira Gandhi, there were very concerted efforts to get India in membership. India might now become the third largest Muslim country from second. Right? From second, it is going to become probably third. So at that time, India was clearly the second biggest Muslim population. But the thing is that it was Muslim countries, partly driven by Pakistan, which prevented India becoming a member of OIC. But I think Peru from South America is a member of OIC, and I don't know why that is. But it doesn't have the same amount of Muslims. So I think it would have been very difficult for the Hindutva to project India as a Hindu country if it was a member of OIC. If in 1970, if India had been included in OIC, then you would have had, they could have also included India in the IDB, which is Islamic Development Bank. I remember when I was coming to the US, I stopped for Umrah. I gave a talk at the Islamic Development Bank and then asked for a scholarship. And they said, we cannot give you scholarship. I said, are you saying I'm a non-Muslim? They said, no, you are. They were very puzzled. They didn't expect that question because it was a public question in front of all the economists. I said, you're treating me as if I'm not a Muslim. If this is an Islamic development bank, why wouldn't you give me money? They said, no, we give money only to our member countries, and India was again not a member of the Islamic Development Bank. So I think Muslims at every opportunity do things which constructs India as a non-Muslim country. And then when Indians try to do that, we have problems with it.
Thank you for sharing that, sir.
Thanks so much. Yes, Mukhtar. So thank you, everybody, for having stayed with us a little more than we planned to. Yes, Nazima, we'll all like to leave now. And thank
Amir,
you very
read the
much.
comment I sent to you directly. I sent you a direct message. I don't know whether you saw it.
To me?
No,
No,
to
no,
Amir.
to
I
me.
sent one to Amir directly. Me too, you saw yours. I mean, yeah, Amir.
Yeah. But
Before you,
Mukhtar,
yeah.
I don't have it.
What?
I don't have your comment. Oh, unless you sent it on something else, not on this chat.
I sent it on chat. I sent it on chat to you directly.
अच्छा कहीं गुम हो गया तुम्हारे पास है तो फिर से भेजो
अभी भेज
so
दूंगा।
yeah so
I
you
will
know
send you our WhatsApp.
yeah, please. Thanks so much, everybody. We as you know, we've started this series and we've kept it deliberately on a Saturday evening India time so that those of you in the US are able to join us. It's wonderful to have all of you here. Mithlesh, thanks for your presentation.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
Yeah.
sir, for being here.
Zainab,
Hi,
thank you
Mithlesh.
very much.
Good.
And
give my love to your mom. Mithlesh brought lots of laddus with her, made by her mom herself.
Okay.
I enjoyed it for
You all are
about 2.5
welcome to my
months.
place. I'll offer laddus.
And the last 3 laddus, we broke it into pieces, and I ate like a small piece, and extended the life of the
When
laddu.
are you coming to India, sir? Next?
I will know tomorrow. I sent something to the Indian embassy. I have to see what they respond with.
Do
But I
visit
will
us.
know.
Do visit Varanasi.
No, here the DC embassy has sent some stuff. So I will know day
Yeah,
after tomorrow if I
no,
can
when you
continue.
come, she's saying when you come next, do visit Banaras, which he will.
Definitely, Banaras.
So thanks so much, everybody. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amit bhai.
Thanks, Zia, Riaz, Rayaz, Malika. We'll see you next week. And thank you so much yet again. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night and
Good night.
have a good day. Yeah. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.